It's nice to do an episode just for myself when it comes to this series. Of course, I don't mind the requested episodes that I get, and whilst I did Maximum the Hormone episode of my own volition, this one is completely different. For starters, I'm not going fully blind into this one. And secondly, whilst I do like Maximum the Hormone, I like these guys a lot more. The Ghost Inside instantly became one of my favourite hardcore bands when I first heard their song Unspoken by chance on Kerrang TV. I fell for the party parody video at first that the song went with, but soon found myself liking the actual song and then the band itself. At a time when I was getting really into hardcore music and heavy music in general, it was rare to find a band that stood out that much, and rare still that almost 6 years after I first heard them, I still love them. This LA quintet may have started under the name of A Dying Dream, but they've cemented themselves as the goat inside, and will go down as one of my favourite hardcore bands ever, despite recent happenings. But we'll get to that when we get to it. So let's just get this on like Donkey Kong. This time it's the Ghost Inside, and I'll see you at the bottom when the sun sets. So, we start with the band's debut, Fury and the Fallen Ones, released in 2008 through Media Scare Records. I couldn't find much in the way of production on the album, but I did find an executive producer by the name of Baron Bodnar, who sounds like a Superman villain to be honest. But he does a really good job, as do the band themselves. Despite the lack of production, it's a well-polished album for being very raw and very hardcore indeed, with the band's mix of metalcore, hardcore, and melodic hardcore being their signature sound, really. It's the band's only album to have original bassist Tyler Watamanuk and rhythm guitarist Sawyer Cole. Also, I hope I'm pronouncing Tyler's surname correctly. It's also the band's shortest album at just over 35 minutes long, but each song makes an impact. I neglected to mention this in the intro, but I don't think I've ever heard such a raw hardcore band with as much positive messages as The Ghost Inside, and Jonathan Mitchell's emotive screams and amazing lyrics conveyed these messages rather well. Cole and lead guitarist Aaron Brooks provide some great riffs together, Tyler is decent on the 4-string, and it's easy to forget how good original drummer Casey Stockbridge was. He provides a great backbone for the band's sound, having some amazing snare and tom combos, and his bass drum work ain't too bad either, I think. I think that my only issue with the album might be the length. Yes, it's short, and each song does get to shine due to that, but barely half the songs are 2.5 minutes long, and one of those is an instrumental track, that song being Smoke and Signal Flares. Having said that, it's a really good instrumental track that leads into a great closer, so I'll give it a pass. Also, the album art is just fantastic, and big credit goes to Ryan Eystone for drawing it up. He does an amazing job. Anyway, now to the standout tunes. Revolutionary Bang the Drum is a fan favourite and a favourite of mine. Provoke is a great way to start the album with the guest appearance of Chris Blair, formerly from the band As Blood Runs Black, providing great screams of his own on the song. The Brave, The Lion War, the excellent closer in Blue and Gold, and my own favourite is possibly Faithful Forgiveness. Just an amazing song. In short, listen to Fury and the Fallen Ones. It's a great debut by the band and easily sets the tone for their sound as we know it and love it today. We followed things up with their 2010 sequel, Returners. Now, despite this album coming out in 2010, I didn't hear Unspoken until 2011. As I mentioned, I was just then getting into heavy music, and thanks to this album, I was propelled to listen to more. I should clarify on that, I didn't listen to this album before writing for this episode, but I heard a lot of songs from it because, as I've mentioned in the past, I had a Last FM account, and The Ghost Inside are added with a lot of the songs from Returners being part of my playlist. Now that the confusion is cleared up, let's move on. Executive produced once again by Baron Bodnar with a dude named Shay Frisbee, far out, handling the main production and engineering. This album is also the last to feature Bodnar and the last to be released on the Media Scale label. It's also the last album to have Casey Stockbridge and the first to have current bassist Jim Riley and rhythm guitarist Zach Johnson, but oh, we'll get to that, just you wait. The album itself was all produced and has the most guest appearances on any of their works with 3. Brendan Foley from Betrayal, Matt Brusso from Very Dead, and Tommy Green from Sleeping Giant appear on the tracks Between the Lines, Chrono, and The Conflict, respectively, and all give really, really good vocal performances. Speaking of vocals, there's more of a gang vocal feeling to a lot of the songs, giving them the extra kick, which I quite like. Despite being their first TGI album, Johnson and Riley sound pretty good, with Riley making a good clean backing vocalist, starring Brooks' backing screens and riffs on the guitar, just sounding fantastic. They play off of each other really well, mixed with Casey putting on a great performance behind the kit, and this being his last album that he'll appear on, and Jonathan Mitchell getting deeper and more personal with his lyrics, with Brooks helping to put some words to the paper as well. Standout tracks include Between the Lines, Unspoken, Chrono, Through the Cracks, and my favourite is the final track, Truth and Temper. It's 8 minutes long and is 2 songs put together. I like to call the first one Truth, which is a typical upbeat track with the band's strong messaging and all, but the second part, Temper, is dark and scary and almost kind of evil sounding. It's got down-tuned guitars and a really low-pitched sounding gang vocal going for it, and it really closes out the album in an eerie but satisfying way. Put simply, Returners is a great second output from the band, and it sounds and it perfects the sound that they started with on Fury and the Fallen Ones. So definitely give it a listen. Next up, we reach the band's third album, Get What You Give, released in 2012. This is the first album that I listened to in full by the band when it came out, and it instantly took my breath away. Holy crap. Before I get to that, though, let's get the obvious other stuff out of the way. It's the band's first release on Epitaph Records and was produced by Jeremy McKinnon. Sound familiar? Well, that's because he's the lead singer of A Day to Remember, engineered by a longtime friend of ADTR, Andrew Wade, at his Wade studio in Ocala, California. The album is a huge leap for the Ghost Inside. It's the first to employ clean singing and that was the band's own choice. It's the first to have current drummer Andrew Tkachik. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I thought after all the OC reviews I was always trying to pronounce Polish-sounding surnames, and the first to not have Baron Bodner as the producer, although Shane Frisbee returned as mixing assistant, so that's cool. Also, in terms of messages, this album has some of the best ones. The gang vocals return to give everything a punch, but there's a lot more balance to them this time around. There was too little on Fury and the Fallen Ones, and just a bit too much on Returners. On Get What You Give, they went all Goldilocks and got it just right in this bitch. Jonathan Mitchell isn't bad as a clean lead vocalist either. Sure, with the help of Raleigh and Brooks, it's a good mix of their vocals, but McKinnon himself had some nice clean elements as well, providing backing vocals on a few of the tracks. His influence is all over the album, but it's never where it doesn't need to be, and I have a huge respect for him for that. Riley's bass sounds amazing, Aaron and Zach's riffs are great, Andrew is an amazing drummer, I think. Whilst I do like him more than I like Stockbridge, I just want you all to remember that I thought Stockbridge was also really good while he was with the band. But Andrew is just a little bit better in my opinion, and he's way better on the snare. The band's signature themes of hope and pushing on through bad times are still here, but a lot of the album is dedicated to Vigil's younger brother Ryan, who'd passed away in 2011. That kind of speaks to me because my own brother is Ryan, and you can see why. No song in the album captures this, though, better than the hauntingly beautiful White Light, where Jonathan screams his brother's name painfully in the closing moments of the song. It's truly beautiful, and it feels very genuine and heart-wrenching. It's also my favourite song by the band ever in their whole history. Other standouts include Face Value, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, featuring Andrew Goose Neville from Comeback Kid, Dark Horse, Engine 45, The Great Unknown, The Clouds and Test Limits, and obviously my favourite in White Light. Other albums, the previous two albums I do recommend, but I absolutely implore you to listen to Get What You Give. It's easily the band's best work, and you should really listen to it right now. So, I'm going to talk about Face Value. This part isn't scripted, by the way. It's just something I'm going to bring up. Anyone who's listened to the album and knows what the band has gone through now will think that the ending of Face Value is kind of cryptic and eerie, because there's a skit at the end of the song. When the song's over, there's a skit at the end. It's a dude driving, talking to the band. I assume he's a manager of some sort. I don't really know. And he's talking to the band and he's driving, and there's a tow truck also coming his way with a bunch of tyres on it. And those tyres start to fall and it causes a collision. And that will kind of segue into what I'm going to bring up on their fourth and so far final album, Dear Youth. But obviously, the band themselves suffered a really nasty crash in November 2015. And I'll talk about that when I get to Dear Youth. But I just felt like that was an eerie thing. I even saw a YouTube comment about it when I was looking for this. I looked for the song of my own sort of thing after I finished writing for Fury and the Fallen Ones, I think. Because I completely forgot that Andrew Neufeld was on it. And I looked in the comments and they were pointing out how eerie the car crash was, given what happened. I was like, holy crap, they're right. So, yeah, it was just a little thing that I thought was interesting and wanted to bring up. And, well, I say interesting despite the really sad circumstances that have come out of it. So, we're going to get to the fourth and final album now. So, sorry for rambling there. I just had to get that out. However, somewhat unfortunately, we do not end things positively as we reach their fourth and so far final album in Dear Youth. Released in 2014, again through Epitaph, there's just this sense of about it. Before I rag on too much about my dislike of the album, I would like to elaborate on the recent happenings that I mentioned on the intro and a bit earlier. For fans of the band, you know that, in 2015 they were in a terrible tour bus accident, which resulted in the driver of the bus driving and the band members suffering critical injuries, with Andrew Tkachik, the drummer, losing one of his legs, whilst the driver of the tractor trailer that they crashed into also died in the accident. I'm just glad personally that the band is back up and running, even to the point of being part of this year's Warped Tour, announced a year ahead in advance last year, which I thought was kind of cool. Anyway, back to the album itself. It's the last one to feature Aaron Brooks, and the last to have Zach Johnson as rhythm guitarist, as he was moved on to lead guitar duties soon after Aaron left, and Chris Davis of Texas in July would take over as rhythm guitarist in 2016 after a year of being a touring member. The album was once again produced by McKinnon, with Albumate helping him behind the booth this time, and they do a good enough job. Do not get me wrong. But there are points of the album where it sounds like it wants to be an ADTR album so bad. And I don't want that. I want A Day to Remember to sound like A Day to Remember, and I want The Ghost Inside to sound like The Ghost Inside. The balance and the unpredictability of the songs on Get What You Give is gone, and the album is the longest in the band's history at just over 42.5 minutes. Very few of the songs actually justify that time, and most wind up just sounding the same. Very few of there's clean vocals again, but it feels like there's just too much from time to time, and the gang vocals, well, there are a lot fewer of those, and the lyrics, while still promoting the band's signature messages of hope and forgiveness and self-belief, wind up being a bit repetitive from time to time. The band don't perform too badly themselves, to be honest, but none of the rest stand out. The drumming and bass work sounds kind of phoned in, and as I mentioned about Jonathan, his local game took a huge step down, as did his vocal work on occasion. Even Jason Butler from Let Live, who is Jonathan's childhood best friend, by the way, makes an appearance on the song Wide Eyed, and even he can't save the album from being as disappointing as it is, despite the fact that it's Jason's fucking mothering Butler. Even still, the album is not without its standouts. Mercy, Phoenix Flame, Avalanche, Out of Control, and the title track Dear Youth, Day 52 are all good songs, with the title track probably being my personal favourite. But much like the rest of the album, they do get bogged down with the odd bit of overproduction and repetitive vocals and lyricism. Listen to this album once and listen again if you liked it. I just didn't, personally, and hope that the band's comeback includes another somewhat better release in the future. So yeah, that's basically it for the episode. Clearly my favourite album was Get What You Give. It keeps things interesting, and it's one of my favourite hardcore albums of all time. Least favourite is Dear Youth, because I just explained, repetitive, overproduced at times, does not really... It is not a very cohesive album. I do look forward to new music from the band regardless, and I hope that they put out something this year, or at least an EP. I'd listen to that EP, even though I don't do those on this channel. So yeah, join me next time for an episode I've been wanting to do personally for a while. Episode 5 is going to be Converge. Oh yes, I'm looking forward to listening to Jane Doe. It's going to be awesome. I'll see you all then. Take care. Bye bye, and I hope you enjoy the episode. See ya.